Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. Now, I'm a man who likes to promote fundamentals of art, and that naturally leans towards realism. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of my friends who are artists as well would kind of have debates on. And it's the idea of realism not being the optimal style when you want to be a professional. Now, it sounds a little bit weird, right? Because we deem realism to be the highest standards of art skill. But in the other previous podcasts, I talked about that in a capitalist society, that might not be true. Great art doesn't always make the most money, and the potential can actually be stifled by how saturated the market is and really other factors. So I want to put forth an argument that might be a bit different than what I usually do. It's the issues with realism. So where do I start? Realism, again, is a demonstration of incredible skill. To be able to realistically depict things from real life is very, very hard. No matter what artistic medium you use, the limits of the materials will come into play. We cannot record every single spectrum of value and color with art materials. However, we can definitely see a lot more colors than what we are able to depict. So in a lot of cases, great realist artists will be able to interpret reality and record it in such a way that they put their own personal touches to it, if that makes sense. They can't simply just record one-to-one from reality because that's literally impossible. So even though it's a huge demonstration of skill, why is there a problem with it? And it comes down to this. Our world right now, in our current year, which is 2017, gotta say that just in case there might be somebody who watches from the future. Now, realism training has been made very abundant over the years. With the advent of the internet, the knowledge is very, very readily available. This is including the fact that a lot of art colleges, you can't really teach your own style. Like, nobody is going to go to you and teach you how to draw Ashley Wood style or something really unique because they're distinctly their own styles. However, assuming the school teaches fundamentals, they'll be able to teach the fundamentals of realism because it's in very technical terms that can be replicated throughout education systems. This is especially very true if you're looking into going to school in China or Russia, which are notorious for realistic art painting schools. So what happens is we create an abundance of people who are capable of painting realistically. Now, the demand for skilled, realistic painters will always be there. But as the years go by, it's getting to the point where a lot of people are able to just do realistic work. This goes for very mainstream styles such as anime as well. There's a lot of demand there for sure, but the number of artists who are able to do that style are getting more abundant. Naturally, when people see styles that work, they will tend to try to copy it. Now, that's not saying everyone is capable of doing those styles, but we'll just assume the situation that there are a lot of artists who are going to art college and they learn this type of fundamentals. As a Chinese person, I can tell you that in China, there's a very, very abundant style in the gaming industry. It's that realistic anime hybrid that I'm sure everyone kind of knows about if they're into games from that region. Not even just in China, but in Korea and Japan. I won't stop you if you like that style, but assume this situation. A lot of artists over there get paid a lot less than we do here, possibly even less than minimum wage. With the abundance of those types of artists there, it's less likely you'll be able to distinguish yourself doing this type of thing, barring really good marketing. I will say there are a very, very select few artists, without naming any names, that operate in America and they have this realistic anime style that seems to get them a lot of money on Patreon. That's completely true. Now we have to think about how the heck are you going to stand out against those people? Plus the artists from China, Korea, and Japan. You have to do something exceptional. And at this point, because there are so many people using that type of style, the competition is very fierce. Again, not to say that they're not skilled, but the skill is doing something that a lot of people chose to do as well. Now, I've met a lot of professionals over my years, and I want to mention that there tends to be one select advice that a lot of these professionals will tell you. It's the idea of being unique. Now, it seems a little bit obvious, right? You're an artist, you want to be unique. But it's actually a lot harder than you think, especially with the internet. There are a lot of artists out there now, and it's become very apparent that if you don't choose to be unique, you can easily fall into what you might think is unique, but it's actually pretty abundant. So, for example, if you're doing realism, the Western type of realism, such as Witcher and Call of Duty type of thing, you would have to be incredibly skilled to actually stand out. Same with anime realism. In fact, the less you try to retain those realistic fundamentals in your work, the more likely you will stand out. That's not to say I'm telling people to just paint a few strokes on a canvas and sell it for a few $1,000,000, because that's also really hard to stand out, since anyone can do it. However, with the knowledge of fundamentals so available nowadays, it's actually creating a reversed effect. People are getting so skilled that if you just use those skills as they are, then you just end up being among the crowd. And the only way to stand out would be to use those fundamentals at an extremely high level. That is why you might have noticed styles like the Gorillas and a lot of the really, really cartoony stuff tends to actually do better from a marketing standpoint. Now, I'm not here to tell you what you need to do, because every artist has their own preferences, and if you're really passionate about certain styles, even if they're in a competitive market, then you're probably going to stand out anyways eventually, because you're going to have the motivation to learn the skills necessary. However, it's a discussion to open up for you to really look into what you're aiming for and whether or not you will have something that people will want. Because if you do something that a lot of people can do, then people will charge you cheaper and look for someone else if you don't agree to very bad terms. I will say that fundamentals of realism is still necessary for education. Don't get me wrong. How you interpret those fundamentals, however, will define you as an artist. And that's probably the most important part about all of this. Now, hopefully, the business of art doesn't scare you a bit. I will be talking more on art theory and such in future videos. I just had a streak of talking about the industry, but as long as it's on the table, I can start moving on. And the earlier I say this stuff, the better. Hopefully people found it helpful, and I'll see you next time.